All right, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praises, honor, glory, respect, and blessings to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Rachaha, Kwadash. Salutations to the Lord's elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing his truth and sincerity while patiently waiting for Yahweh Shai's return. And double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, which have taught us everything we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai. And welcome to another series of GMS on the job, being brought to you by the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai. Once again, I'm at the plantation, busting my ass, blood, sweat, and tears just to make ends meet. And as you may know, while I'm doing the physical work, I am also doing the spiritual work as well by providing edification to Yahweh Shai's precious sheep in the form of a gourmet meal that they may be filled. So I wanted to do a response video to a video that was done by the beloved brother, Elder Hawad, as you see right here. His YouTube channel is GMS North Carolina 777, and he did a video called "If you don't work, you don't eat."
Tom, you have a phone call line 1?
Now,
Tom, line 1?
on a literal sense, on a physical sense, okay, you know, if you don't have a job, if you don't work, then pretty much you don't eat. Now, and of course, naturally, you know, the Lord is going to feed you and keep you alive, even if you're homeless, right? Even if you don't have a job, you know. Some states are, you know, fortunate enough to have food pantries to feed those who cannot afford food or afford a home, you know. But to eat, in a sense, you know, means to reap the benefits of. You know, because there's benefits to having a job, you know. You might get paid here and there, you know, and you might be able to enjoy the benefits of, you know, getting paid, such as being able to buy the food that you want to buy, you know, such as, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but, you know, but such as, you know, like going to the movie theaters, you know. You might be able to enjoy the benefits of getting paid by going to the movie theaters, for an example, you know. You might go to a restaurant like Olive Garden to eat. You know, you might you might buy that one video game that you always wanted. So eat, in a sense, can be reaping the benefits of. You know, you work hard for something, you know, which working is often the hard part. You know, nobody wants to work. You know, I mean, who the hell wants to work, right? You know, a lot of people want the easy way out. You know, they want things to be handed to them on a platter, you know, at their beck and call. You know, everybody wants a car. Everybody wants an electric scooter. Everybody wants an electric bike. Everybody wants a turkey. Everybody wants to eat barbecue chicken. Everybody wants to watch the latest show that came out. Everybody wants that latest motorcycle. Everybody wants a decent home, a place of comfort to rest their head. Everybody wants cable TV. Everybody wants internet, but nobody wants to work to reap those benefits. Nobody wants to work to eat. Everybody wants the latest clothes that came out, the latest shoes. Everybody wants jewelry, but nobody wants to work to get those benefits. So in a sense, you know, when Yahweh said, if a man don't work, he don't eat, it can be talking about physically eating in a physical sense, but the eat can also be talking about reaping the benefits of. So now in a spiritual sense, when it comes to this truth, the work would be considered as what? The work would be considered as doing videos, going out on the highways and hedges, fasting and praying, keeping your spirit in tune with Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. If you're an Israelite, you know, because only Israelites can come into this truth. You know, you're doing your videos, you're going out on the highways and hedges, you know, you're studying by watching other videos, you know, you're taking notes rather mentally, physically, you're doing your own research, you're digging, you're laboring, you know. And doing the work of the Lord is more than just, you know, doing videos. You know, it's more than just going out on the highways and hedges and teaching. Doing the work also means your conduct. You know, how are you living your life when off the camera? How are you living your life when you're not around brothers? You know, are you resisting temptation? You know, are you doing wickedness behind closed doors, or are you fighting against those demons? You see, fighting against demons is also doing the work as well. Fighting against demons, you know, handling rebuke, you know, enduring hardness, enduring the scoffings, okay, enduring the false rumors that were put upon you. You know, you're enduring persecution, you know, even at your job. You know, your boss might chew you out, he might yell at you, you know, but you're handling it according to the Holy Scriptures and not according to your emotions. All these are part of doing the work. You're fighting the good fight of faith, you know. Somebody asks you a question on the comment board, you might respond, you might do a video to it, you know. You know, all these are a part of doing the work, you know. Defending the gospel. Somebody might, you know, break down the scriptures wrong and try to, you know, present it to their congregation. But you're doing a counter video to defend the gospel, you know, so that, you know, those who are new coming into the faith that are possibly of the elect, you know, will not, you know, go astray after those false teachings. Even though we know that the elect is not going to be deceived, right? As it is written, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. But the main fuel, which is also a motivator to continuing in the faith, to continuing in this truth, is fear and faith in Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Okay, if you fear Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, you're going to do exactly as he say. And you know, we say this a lot. The Heavenly Father is not looking for somebody who loves him. No, oh, I love the Lord. Oh, he's so good and blah, blah, blah. Look, the Lord is looking for someone who fears him. Fear is a greater motivator than faith. I mean, well, if you have faith in Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, hence the title, Faith and Fear, right? Because faith and fear go hand in hand when it comes to acting as your spiritual fuel to keeping you moving in this truth. But you see, if you fear Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, you're not going to eat pork behind brothers' backs. You're not going to smoke behind brothers' backs. You're not going to commit adultery behind brothers' backs. You're not going to go getting tattoos behind brothers' backs. Okay? You know, you're not going to be eating unclean foods behind brothers' backs. You know, you're not going to be getting lineups. You're not going to be growing dreads. You're not going to be presenting doctrines, secret teachings that are going off in the Holy Scriptures behind brothers' backs. You see? You're not going to be doing those things, You're not going to be slandering brothers behind their backs. You're going to be keeping the Sabbath to the best of your ability. And all these things are done through what? Fearing Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. You're going to keep the Lord's laws, statutes, and commandments, which you can keep, including the high holy days, which you can keep, to the best of your ability. Okay? You're going to do those things. You're going to do those things because it is commanded of you. You see? Because the Lord commanded of you. Now, if you have faith, right? What is faith? Faith, according to the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter and the first verse, right? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So if you believe in the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and if you believe in his son, Yahweh Shai, it's going to lead to you walking in the fear of the Lord. It's going to lead to you fearing Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, because you believe in them, right? Through faith, you believe in them. So you know they exist. And you also know that if you don't do as they say, there's a punishment that can come with that. And that punishment can be severe. Okay? Like Yahweh Shai said in the book of Luke, the 12th chapter, okay? And he that knew his master's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. So faith leads to you believing in a Heavenly Father and his Son. And that faith also comes with fearing Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, which will what? It will lead to you continuing to do the work, doing what was told you. And sometimes the Lord will tell you what to do through particular brothers, because the Lord, look, Yahweh Shai, he's not going to come down here from the heavens himself and tell you to do your videos, man. He's going to tell you to do your videos through brothers, okay? Through brothers, okay? Remember, in Proverbs 20, verse 24, it tells you that man's goings are of the Lord. How could a man then understand his own way? So if a brother, through the Spirit is telling you to do your videos, that's really the Lord telling you to do your videos through that brother. Okay, because when you read the book of Luke, chapter 1, verse 70, it tells you that the Lord spake through the mouth of his holy prophets. Okay, just because a brother is not prophesying about the Holy Scriptures does not mean that the Lord is not speaking through that brother. Okay? That's even through our leaders, which will be, Elder Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Gabar, Elder Apostle Racha, Elder Apostle Ariamlab, and Elder Apostle Racha, Elder Apostle Gabar and Elder Apostle Tahar, They get on us all the time, about doing our videos, being present at camp, going out on the highways and the hedges and teaching, fasting, praying, battling against demons, taking rebuke, being humble. And it's really the Lord teaching us through those men, he that have ears to hear, let him hear. So, I looked up the word for fear in the etymology dictionary, which when you go into the word Adam, etymology, which is a compound word. A compound word is a word that can be broken down into separate words to get a deeper understanding of the word. The word etymology, when you break it down, Adam meaning Adam means the truth of. It means the truth. The word Adam means the truth of words. And then you got the word ology. Ology, when you add ology at the end of a word, it means that you study in that particular subject. So like biology, for an example, bio meaning life or body. You got the word ology, which means study of. So biology means the study of life or the study of the body. So etymology means the study of the truth of words. So, and the etymology dictionary goes off sometimes too. So you just got to learn how to pick the meat off the bones. When we go into the definition for fear here in etymology dictionary, it literally means, okay, Middle English, feare, from Old English, feare. It says calamity, sudden danger, peril, sudden attack, okay, danger. Okay, it says harm, distress, okay, deception. Okay, it says, it says harm, distress, deception. Okay, from Dutch, gevaar, German, gevaar, danger, which according to Watkins is from pi, per, a lengthened form of the verbal root per, to try, risk. So you see, the word fear is synonymous with danger, peril, calamity, sudden attack, you see? And
all right, nice job on the shoes. Thank you.
oh yeah, I cleaned up everything over there too. You know, I was just back there looking for a particular hanger.
All right. Wait time 15.
Okay. No, thanks for letting me know. You know, but you see, if you know Yahweh, Bashem, which the only ones who can really know the Lord are the Israelites, okay? Which would be the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native Indians, you see? And if you know the Lord, which a good way to know the Lord is to read the Old Testament, okay? Because when you read the Old Testament, it gives you these different books written by various prophets, such as Samuel, the book of Judges, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Nehemiah, Zechariah, okay, the book of Ezra, which is Esdras, the first 5 books of Moses. When you read all these various books, it gives you a list of the great and mighty works which the Lord have done for the nation of Israel, that his name may be magnified throughout the whole earth. Okay, so you'll read stories, specifically about the 2 men that came up against Moses, right? And basically the Lord opened up a sinkhole underneath those niggas and swallowed them up in the earth, and then the earth closed on them. Okay, that was a sudden danger. That was a sudden attack, because those men were not afraid to speak against the Lord's servant, which was Moses. You see that? Or what the Lord did to the Egyptians, okay? Those were a series of dangerous acts, okay? Okay, swarms of frogs, coming up out of the waters. there was a great stank in the land of Egypt, you know, that darkness that the Lord brought over Egypt through his servant Moses. And all you got to do to read about that darkness which Moses brought upon ancient Egypt, right? In order to get a good understanding of what happened to those Egyptians during that time, just go to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 17th chapter. Okay? And it'll tell you of all the terrors, the calamities which the Lord brought upon ancient Egypt. Okay? You know, you read about what the Lord did during the time of Noah, how he flooded the whole earth. When it started raining on those people, that was a sudden attack from the Lord. That he was going to drown every soul on that planet, or on this planet, except for Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives. Okay? What the Lord did to ancient Sodom and Gomorrah, how he rained fire and brimstone on those cities. Okay? All those people that was living in ancient Sodom and Gomorrah doing all of those wicked acts, right? They had no idea that the Lord was going to rain fire and brimstone on those areas via the angels. They had no idea of that. While they were busy committing sodomy and getting all caught up in their sinful and wicked lusts, guess what? Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, fire and brimstone came upon those individuals, okay? And that's why the Holy Scriptures speak about the fear of the Lord, you know? And I used to visit a website called Best Gore. And I used to go into, you know, they'll have some things on there like work accidents and, you know, electrocutions and, you know, animal encounters. Best Gore was one of those websites where it had no filter. It had no filter. You know, you could literally watch people getting beheaded on there. You know, people who will be working on a electrical site, and then a live electrical wire would touch them, and they would get electrocuted so badly that their insides would start to get fried to the point to where fire would start to emit from their eyes, their ears, you know, their skin, and they would literally get burned alive. You know, people who was walking on ice and then suddenly they slipped on the ice and fell on a railway and got ran over by a train. Like, you see what I mean? Or, you know, a person might just be, you know, walking down the street, and then the wheel, a semi truck might be flying down the road, and then the wheel come off the semi truck and then bounce onto the sidewalk and then hit somebody and hit somebody, you know, in the back, and then they fall face forward on the cement so hard that their brains go splattering out of their heads. Or you know, somebody who might just be, you know, walking through the woods having a good time, and then they encounter a lion, and a lion a pack of lions, and guess what? They get eaten alive. Or somebody might be swimming in the ocean, and then suddenly they get pulled underwater. Come to find out, they got attacked by a shark, and you don't hear from them anymore. Or somebody who jumps in a river to go for a swim, right? And then they might go deep at a certain amount, and then suddenly they realize they're about to run out of breath. You know, they realize they're about to run out of breath, right? So then they're trying to swim back up to the surface, but right before they can do it, they realize that they're getting lower and lower on energy. Okay. They're getting lower and lower on energy. And right before you know it, they start to panic. And then right before you know it, they out of breath. Now their asses drowned underneath the water. Or I believe it was back in, I think it was back in the year 2014 or 15, when this one Edomite, okay, he jumped in some quicksand. He jumped right in the middle of that shit too. Okay, it was this Edomite, which the biblical Edomites, according to the Holy Scriptures, will be the self-proclaimed white man. But this Edomite, right, he jumped right in the middle. He jumped right in the middle of a pool of quicksand, thinking that this one was going to be easy to swim out of. Guess what? The Lord had him in a trick bag. Okay, he was trying his hardest because he was sinking, but slowly, you know, and he had this pompous, proud attitude that he was going to swim right to one of the sides and make it out of that quicksand alive. Guess what? He couldn't even move. And slowly but surely, he was sinking in more and more underneath the quicksand. Okay? And right before you knew it, you know, he realized,
chaos at your convenience.
you know, right before you know it, you know, basically he was down to his shoulders. So now he began to panic, you know, because he realized that he was not going anywhere. And right before you know it, the only thing that was above the surface was his face. Okay? And he's sitting here breathing and panicking. And then guess what? You know, right before you know it, his whole entire body was under the quicksand. And the only thing he was left to do was to hold his breath. But inevitably, he ran out of breath and he ended up drowning under some quicksand. So you see, his sudden fear and his sudden danger came upon him unawares. Or people who have dogs, you know. No, there's been a lot of cases where the dog would suddenly attack the person, right? And basically it eat the person's face off. Just like that one woman who owned a chimpanzee, you know, that the Lord put the spirit on that chimpanzee to attack that woman and basically eat her whole face off. And the worst part is that she survived, right? She basically survived and she don't even have a face anymore. Okay? Her eyes are gone. You know, she could barely open her mouth. Her nose was missing. So you see, in the book of Hebrews, the 10th chapter, where it says it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, that is a true saying, man. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God, because at any moment, the Heavenly Father can bring calamity and danger upon you. Okay? And I gave you all those scenarios to show you that at any given moment, the Heavenly Father can bring sudden danger and sudden calamity upon you. And that's why the Holy Scriptures speak about serving the Lord with fear and with trembling. Because we don't know what could befall us within the next minute. You know, at your job site could be the next place to be the next victim of a open shooting. You know, just like those people that went to that movie theater. You know, they went to the movies thinking they was gonna have a good old time, and then right before they knew it, they heard gunshots, pow, 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 and suddenly that place turned into a place of terror to them. And several people died in that movie theater. Talking about that one guy, right? He thought he was the Joker, and he went up in there with an AK and just started shooting people. Things like that happen, man. So, hey, man, that's why the Holy Scriptures. That's why the Holy Scriptures speak about serving the Lord with fear and trembling, because you never know when calamity can be brought upon you. And I'm not saying it's going to happen to brothers in the truth, you know. You know, but what I am saying is that, you know, at any given moment, the Lord could cast us out of the truth And, if we get cast out the truth, we no longer have a hedge around us, because every brother that is of the elect in this truth have a hedge around them, an angel around them, protecting them from danger, from calamities. Because you better best believe the so-called elites of this society, when they get together at these different groves and these secret parts of the world, when they come together, they're sending up the demonic enchantments, they're sending up demonic enchantments, and they're sending up, they're putting curses on people, man. That they're calling upon demons to attack people. And these things are real, man. So, if you're not doing what is commanded of you by the Lord can take away that hedge from you, and he can allow demons to attack you. And those demons can lead you to committing sins worthy unto death, man. Those demons can have people attack you. Those demons can lead you to, getting ran over by cars. Those demons can lead you to getting jumped, getting stuck in a house fire, getting into a car accident, and ultimately, so, and I'm not saying that's going to happen to brothers, because we know that the Lord is going to protect his elect men. But we also know that the elect are going to do the things that are well pleasing to the Lord to avoid being judged by harsh judgments. The elect is going to do what they have to do the things that are pleasing to the Lord, so that, they don't get caught up in the judgments that the people of the world are going to receive. Because the judgments that the people of the world are going to receive, it's going to be harsh, man. It's going to be very harsh.
That's a good question. Did you just say that's a good question?
It's going to be harsh judgments, man. And that's what the people are going to receive. So, if you're of the hopeful elect, right, it would behoove you to do that which is well pleasing in the sight of the Lord. It would behoove you to do your videos. Now, you may not be able to do videos every day. That's understandable. But there should be no reason why you're going a whole month or even 2 or 3 months in a row of no videos. Because then that's called being stagnant, There should be no reason why you're going 2-3 months of not doing any videos, no videos whatsoever. And then it becomes a trend. It becomes a habit. You might do a couple of videos here and there, but then the next 2 months you have not done any videos. And then, you do some videos here and there, and then another 3 months you ain't do no videos. At that point, you're not in the truth, man. No, you got to be doing your videos daily. You have to go out on the highways and hedges. Now, you may not be able to go out on the highways and hedges every week, but what matters is the effort. You're making an effort to go out on the highways and hedges, And when you show up, you're participating in camp, You're not just there at camp being a dead body, You're not just sitting there at camp with your hands in your pocket, listening, waiting for time to go by so you can go home, eat potato chips and play Call of Duty. No, you're not in that spirit, all right? When you're at camp contributing to edifying the Lord's sheep. You see?
Where's your Nike store, buddy?
If you go in, you can go through this door.
I can go through here?
Yeah, go through this door and then go way down there. Okay, if you go way down there, if you go in these doors, okay, you want to go all the way down to that side, and then walk way down there, and you'll run.
Over there?
Yeah.
I can park over there and go?
Mm-hmm. So, if you're of the hopeful elect, it would behoove you to, go to camp, go on the highways and hedges, edify the Lord's sheep, do your videos, defend the gospel, study, fast, pray, read the scriptures, listen to the videos, It would behoove you to do these things, man. But while you're doing these things, you're not doing wickedness behind closed doors, You're keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments via rehearsing the righteous acts to the best of your ability, You're being brotherly, For in doing these things, you're making your calling and election sure, because the Holy Scriptures speak about giving diligence, But now if you're just, you're getting weak in this truth, you're not really doing videos, you're not participating, in the brotherhood, and which I don't see how you can have any friends in the world, man. I've had friends in the world, but man, I found myself soon being separated from them. Because I cannot see myself hanging around a guy that talks about eating pork or smoking weed, I cannot be around somebody like that, But you got guys in this truth who have friends that are in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, There's some guys that are in the world who have some decency about them. They don't necessarily smoke. They got a good job. They may not be in the truth, but they real cool. But you can see them as being, some of those guys who might wake up in a latter end when shit gets real, But me, I prefer to have brothers that are in this truth as my friends. Those are really my friends right there. The hopeful elect. Okay, the Lord's elect are my friends. Okay, those are my friends right there. Where I hope I'm of the elect. As it is written, we are prisoners of hope. But again, if you fear Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, and you have fear in Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, you're going to be driven to do the work and to do the things which are commanded of you by Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, to the best of your ability. Okay? So with that, I'm going to say shalom. Is on to the next one.